Welcome back to Real Conversations with Nora for our first episode of season one. My topic of discussion this week is preparing the next generation for greatness. And joining me today is Jonathan Banks. Jonathan Banks is motivated to see people maximize their potential and purpose by challenging them to grow and inspiring them to rise. Jonathan is currently pursuing his doctorate in business administration from Indiana Wesleyan University. Jonathan has enjoyed an amazing career path, which has included a nonprofit leadership, youth ministry, food ingredients and flavor research, real estate and finance, and business development, and teaching and tutoring K 12 and college level courses. Jonathan now serves as a chief operating officer at Urban Outreach Foundation, serving an international group of community and faith leaders. His own academic and tutoring experience helped him form an effective approach to success that he willingly shares with the next generation, which I love. And Jonathan is an ordained minister and lives with his wife Jacinta and their courageous, I love it, their courageous college age sons rather. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on Real Conversations with Nora. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So I read something that said, well, I wrote something that said we were born good, and the environment was that we're made of sometimes is bad, and others believe that we were born bad and that the environment out to make us bad.
Mhm.
One clear thing is that the environment plays a great role in shaping all of us and our experience. And so what makes us, good or bad tend to view or the view of others or the world partly as a result of our own upbringing sometimes. With that in mind, how do we capitalize upon the current knowledge of the wisdom? The word of God says all things work together for good. I believe that God made us all good, and it's the world that we're in. But how do we capitalize on the current knowledge of wisdom to a better world for our children, our grandchildren, for the next generation? And that's what I love about you, and I loved about your book, is that how you really pour into that next generation. And so I believe that it is God that desires that we become who he has called us to be, which is awesome, mighty, and powerful and great. That's what I used to always tell my grandchildren before they went to school. You're awesome, you're powerful, you're mighty, you're great. The world may say that you're bad, or this person may say they're bad, but God says that you're great. So tell me your thoughts on that. I know that was a mouthful.
No, but thanks for the question. I've been mentoring teens and tutoring students for over 30 years, and I've been a parent for over 20 years.
Wow.
And I believe that we're all born with potential and opportunities
Hmm.
that can be good or used for good or evil. And,
Right.
and our job is to guide the next generation to maximize their potential for
Hmm.
good with the most powerful tools that we have. And I believe those examples that we set are expectation setting and
Hmm.
praying with them. Um, for example, as we follow the Apostle Paul, he said, "Follow me as I follow Christ." And he told
Right.
Titus, "And you yourself must be an example to them by doing good works of every kind. Let everything you do reflect the integrity and seriousness of your teaching." So we have to make sure that we are actually setting a positive example for
Hmm.
young people to follow.
Right.
I've heard it this way in our community: it's tough to be what you can't see. Second, I
Mm.
believe that we have to really employ expectation setting,
Mhm.
emphasizing what's possible when they apply themselves. And
Mhm.
here's really important, Dr. Nora, allowing them to set their own goals
Mm.
and own their own goals. And then, of course, as the previous generation, as caregivers, oftentimes as parents, aunties, uncles, grandparents, etc., we have to graciously hold them accountable. And lastly, as I mentioned, we have to pray, and
Mm.
not just pray for them,
Mhm.
certainly not just pray on them,
Mhm.
but pray with
Mm.
them to rely on God as they strive for greatness.
Amen.
And we have to actually model prayer.
Mhm.
Let them hear us praying for them and
Mhm.
for courage and wisdom, and
Mhm.
affirm them during that prayer.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
as we honor God, God, we know they are more than enough. We know they are fearfully and wonderfully made. We believe, God, that your image rests on them every single day. So use them, build them up. And however you pray,
Mhm.
we're not praying in a perfunctory manner. We're not praying for the theater aspect of it, but
Right.
prayers demonstrate our faith and confidence in God through them.
Wow. So the next thing was preparation. Preparation starts even before the decision of having a child
Mhm.
or as soon as we learn that we're expecting one. It then continues throughout the childhood and adulthood. In other words, it does not stop there. It involves a process. And it is a key factor of preparing our next generation for the future. Can you talk a little bit about that preparation?
Sure. Now, I am not a health professional, but we all know that maternal nutrition, rest, and health play a role in giving children their best start. In addition, paternal health also gives the child a best start. So before we even think about having kids, I would encourage couples
Mhm,
to begin to set health goals for
mhm.
themselves. And of course, involve your caretaker, involve your primary care physician. But you're right, preparation does not stop for the next generation. In the
Right,
same way, it doesn't stop for us.
right.
Preparation, of course, it starts with an inspiring vision. The
Mhm.
vision must be inspiring to
Mm,
not just us, but to the young person. And I believe that oftentimes we fail our children and the next generation because we expect the previous generation's why to inspire the next generation.
mm.
That's not fair. And that's also not effective. We have to help them own their own why, which means that as we inspire them, as we prepare them, we've
Mhm.
got to involve them in the process. We
Right,
can't just say, hey, here's the plan for your life, go make it happen.
right,
We have to make sure they own their own plan, that
right.
they own their own preparation, and that
Mhm.
they buy into the goals that they are co creating with us. You
Mm.
know, as we show them what's possible,
Mhm.
as best we can. But
Right.
understand this, Dr. Nora, over half of the careers that young people are going to compete in a global competition, those careers, those industries, they don't exist yet because the next generation hasn't invented them yet.
Wow,
So we
that's
can't limit them to our own perspective, our
Mhm,
own vision, our own insight.
mhm,
We've got to teach them to dream themselves, to
mhm.
receive vision from God, and to play to the strengths, the gifts, and the abilities that God has put inside of them. But preparation, it's not a thing, it's the only thing.
Wow, I love it. Well, then that fits right into the next one is expectation.
Mhm.
It's common knowledge that whether in school or at home or in the workplace, expectations can make or break any extended results. As parents, we should have expectations not only for ourselves, but for our children and for the next generation. And
Mhm.
I want to add the answer to the question is priceless, but I want to add to that is teaching them what it means to have expectations for yourself,
Sure.
and what you expect and what you want your life to talk about. So talk a little bit about that expectation because it's such a key factor. I have expectations of the God I serve because why? He's given me a manual. It's called the Bible. He's told me what I can expect from him. So can you talk a little bit about expectations?
Absolutely. I think that no human, and especially no child, consistently lives above expectation.
Mm,
We can strive toward that as a goal, but
right.
to consistently live above expectation, I haven't seen it.
Right.
That said, the key is to make sure, as I said before, that
Mm-hmm.
these are shared expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they're not expectations, they're
Wow.
rules.
Right.
And I've heard this said early, previously by others, that rules without relationship usually lead to rebellion.
Mm.
So the relationship
Mm-hmm.
and the expectation, they must be mutually fulfilling.
Right.
You have to find out what's important to your child and honor that as you build godly expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's right or wrong, when my children were very young, we would have conversations and I would lay out choices for them. And I would say,
Mm-hmm.
listen, if you choose to get married, you're going to marry a godly woman.
Mhm.
And I would begin to set expectation for them about what's possible.
Right.
Again, allowing them their space.
Mhm.
They don't have to be in a relationship. No one says in order to be saved or honor God, you have to be in a relationship.
Absolutely.
But if you choose to be in a relationship, now
Right.
again, we oftentimes we have our own fantasies as parents, as
Right.
grandparents. We want you to, make us grandbabies and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's great if it happens.
Right.
But really, my greatest expectation comes from 3rd John 1 and 4, where the Apostle John writes, my greatest desire, my greatest joy is that my children walk in truth. And those were not just his natural children. He was
Right.
talking about his spiritual children. Just
Mhm.
honor God in what you do. But Dr. Nora, they've got to be shared expectations.
Right.
Those expectations have to be born out of conversation.
Right.
We've got to share God's principles and his precepts,
Mhm.
but we have to do so in an empowering way. We
Right.
can't paint God as this, uh, you know, this authoritarian,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
you know, fear mongering spirit. We have to
Right.
share the totality of God,
Right.
our loving Father, our
Mhm.
heavenly provider, our
Right.
waymaker, our very present help in the time of trouble. Therefore, their theology, how they think about God, and
Right.
how they rely on God to
Mhm.
receive vision, to set expectations and goals for their own life.
Mhm.
They can be co-owned with
Mhm.
the previous generation, and
Mhm.
then we hold them accountable, as I said, with grace.
Awesome. 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 My next topic is love, but I do want to interject there for 1 second and
Mhm.
ask you your thoughts on, because sometimes we have students who are or kids, and you say, well, you talk to them about their goals and what they want. I don't know. I'm sure you experience that, tutoring children or young people. I don't know. Not, no, or they do this. What is your response? How do you deal with, or how have you dealt with that?
You mean people that just kind
Young
of,
people.
when they're nonchalant about
Yes,
expectations and
yes,
goals?
yes, like their goals, or what do you wanna do, when you get out of college, or out of high school, or what's your next goal, when you're having that conversation, and I'll
Sure,
say I have that conversation with my grandson,
sure.
and he
Well,
just I don't know.
I hate to go into a controversial area on the first episode of your new season, but let's go there, Dr. Nora. If you were courageous enough to read Raise Your GPA, you would find out that, and I'm not sure that I use this word in the book, but because I'm guessing that most of your audience are adults, I feel a little bit more comfortable sharing this word.
Right.
I think that asking kids what they want to be when they grow up is kind of a stupid question. I
Mm,
understand the motivation behind it, but I
right.
think it often backfires on us. I
Mhm.
think a better question to ask young people is, how has God gifted you, and what
Mm,
strengths has he put inside of you?
mhm.
We ask young people, what do you want to be when you grow up? As if we as adults know what we have been called to be as we grow up. And we put this unrealistic pressure on them
Yeah.
to have an answer that inspires.
Wow.
Because if they would say, you know what, I want to be uh,
A
a
firefighter.
food quality inspector on a manufacturing line, that may not inspire an adult the same way it does say, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor. And they get used to the, ooh, and then they begin to play to those responses,
Mm,
even if God has not gifted them in that area. And
right.
we almost inadvertently guide them toward unrealistic expectations in areas that God has not gifted them to aspire to. So a better way to engage them is to say, hey, what do people seek you out for?
Mhm.
What are some areas of demonstrated strength that you have found in your own ability? Because
Right.
I'm going to guarantee that if God has gifted you, and because God has gifted you, we can find a way to leverage that so
Mhm.
that it brings satisfaction to you,
Mhm.
benefit to our community, and glory to God. And when we start with them,
Mhm.
everyone believes that they are their most interesting subject. So when
Right.
we talk to them about them,
Yeah.
instead of interrogating them, which
Talking
is not our intent, but it
right.
is often our result,
Mm,
because then they believe that I have to now perform for you.
right.
Even if you're my loving grandmother,
Right.
even if you're my nurturing teacher,
Right.
even if you're my caring pastor, you
Right.
are now investigating, have I bought in to
Mhm.
this system
Mhm.
of education? Let me ask you this, Dr. Nora. How old is your grandson, the one that you're referring to right now?
He's 16. Jasmine
Awesome.
17. Yeah, he just turned 17.
Awesome. So 10 years ago, he was in elementary school, and you would talk to your grandson and say, hey, guess what? Because I know you're going to do well in elementary school, you know what's next? Middle school. And then my expectation is that you're going to do well in middle school. You know what's after that? High school, where you are right now. And guess what? For those that aspire to be significant in their accomplishments, there's another school after that. That's called
Oh,
college.
college.
And because when you graduate college, it's going to be 2029. We know that most people can't really get by with just a bachelor's degree. You're going
Right.
to have to go to another college. Dr. Nora, that is not inspiring to a
No,
16-year-old.
it
So
isn't.
why would he get excited about school, and more school? So
Right.
here's a better approach, in my estimation,
Right.
opinion, and experience. It is to say, you know what? I believe that God's got great things in store for you. In fact, you've probably sensed it already.
Mhm.
Let's see how what God has put inside of you can
Mhm.
help bring finances,
Mhm.
support, encouragement to you, your community,
Mhm.
your faith community, and bring glory to God. God is going to give you access and fun at every stage of your development, even
Wow.
while you're in high school. Let's
Wow.
find a way for you to begin to be a champion and probably even earn funds by playing to your strengths. Does that
Mm.
sound interesting to you? I mean, I usually ask young people this way: hey, who likes to be told what to do and bossed around? And I raise my hand, and no one else does. I say,
Right.
oh, okay. So you guys are gifted in leadership. Here's how we get to be the best leaders by understanding that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So
Mm.
if you want to be my business partner, if you want to be my employee, if you want to be my collaborator, I'm going to look, how have you handled previous responsibility, which
Mm.
for most of you all is your academics. When you demonstrate proficiency in your academics, when
Mhm.
you handle your business, that proves that you're ready for the next level of business, which could mean your own clothing line, which could be
Right.
your own art project, which could mean your own business, which could mean, you as a leader in your community, or as a business owner or a leader in a Fortune 100 company.
Wow.
That usually turns the light on for them. It's
Right.
not designed to be easy, but
Right.
it is designed to be fulfilling.
Awesome. Oh my goodness, that was so good. Okay, so the next one is love. Love is powerful. It can make wonders. It can push us out, push us into our greatness. The lack of it indeed leads to exact opposite.
Mhm.
Part of preparing for the next generation is to instill love, help them to feel love, and help them to love themselves and help them to love others, and to work towards, again, loving themselves. I believe that the world would be a better place if we had the love, the one love. The most important love is the love of Christ. So can you talk a little bit about love with young people, because this is real important, especially in this generation? I find that that's a big piece. I was sharing with, we were talking about, having a conversation, a group of us, and we were talking about gang members, and maybe they didn't come from a great environment, but to them, if you take a, and this is just my analogy, if you take a bullet from me, that says you love me. So they're basically saying any kind of love is better than no kind of love at all, and showing your love. So, but there is a greater love, and we know that, and that greater love is Christ. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Uh, I believe that love affirms worth,
Hmm.
love sacrifices for others, and love guides us towards an abundant future. Love is the inspiration and motivation to prepare for an abundant future. And this is the neat thing about love, in my, as I said, experience, estimation, and assessment. Love meets us where we are
Hmm.
and leads us forward. So
Mm.
we have to love our youth where they are right now,
Right.
instead of just loving the fantasy,
Of
our fantasy
who
of
they
what
want to
that
be.
future looks like.
That's
We,
right.
we want to love young people almost transactionally. That
Mm.
breaks my heart.
Yeah.
That we will almost take love to like a number 3 or number 4 level, but let a young person not do their homework. Let them get in a fight. Our disappointment jumps to 9 or
Mm,
10, and we allow our disappointment to overshadow our love for them, when
Jesus.
God never does that to us.
Never,
With
never.
loving kindness have I drawn thee.
Mm,
That's how God deals with us. When I was in my rank sin, when I was the enemy of God,
mhm,
he loved us.
mm.
Bible says, herein is love. Not that we loved God first, but that he
Loved
loved us first. But here's the neat part about love that we have to unpack. You mentioned that people that are involved with street or gang life, they're looking for love. Of course we are. We're all born with an innate desire for love. One of the organizations that is a client of ours works in the area of violence reduction. And
it.
I work with reformed gang members most days out of the week. And
Mhm,
usually when they greet each other and greet each other on the street, they, one of their phrases is, hey, love, love. And
yeah,
that's just spewed out, whether it is authentic,
right,
inauthentic, whether it is healthy, godly love, or it's toxic,
right,
using, abusing love. But
right,
it still masquerades as love.
right.
And so you're right. Love, like the word ministry,
Mhm,
must meet the need of the receiver. So
mhm,
I'm a big fan, again, of Dr. Gary Chapman, the 5 love languages. With
mhm.
all due respect to our dear brother, multi-millionaire, mega book selling brother, I think he missed a few. I think he missed, like, some people's love language is food. Some people's love language, of course, is when you will defend them, because
Mhm,
oftentimes they will feel vulnerable. And
right,
so, yes, you're right. We have to make sure that we are showing Christ's love, but
right.
that it manifests in a way that is meaningful to the recipient.
Yeah,
Remember, he met the woman at the well and
yeah,
he told her about water. He didn't just tell her about salvation,
right.
he met her where she
She
was, and he was in tune, and he did not demonize the culture,
right,
which we are. All of us have a PhD in demonizing culture,
yeah.
and we love to attach young people to culture.
Mhm,
And again, because I know that a lot of your audience are adults, maybe they're spiritual leaders or pastors, it works against our intentions. And I
mhm,
believe that it misrepresents the kingdom when we jump up in our pulpits, name the 1 or 2 hip hop artists that we know that don't aren't really even meaningful to young people anymore, because they've moved on to the next generation of hip hop artists or just world influencers. And we try to demonize the culture
mhm.
instead of affirming young people and teaching them how to influence the culture,
Right,
how to impact their generation,
right.
how to respectfully honor God, but to speak and to do like Paul said, I became all things to all people,
People.
that by any means I might save some.
Mhm,
We've got to be flexible.
right.
We've got to be authentic, and we've
Mhm,
got to be committed to the
mhm,
authenticity of the gospel, but
mhm.
understand that the relevancy of the gospel continues to evolve as culture does.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so in your book, Rise Your GPA, in the second chapter, you
Yeah.
talked about God's success is measured differently. And you said God's word tells us in Deuteronomy 6:5 that godly success comes through through a loving God with
Mhm.
all our heart, loving God rather, with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all of our strength. Can you talk a little bit about that before? And you also shared, I want to say this, and you also shared that godly success all depends on how well we love one another.
Sure.
Loving God and loving others are the two main parts of a godly life.
Mhm.
These two make up another part, which is more important, which is a GPA, and which stands for God Point Average. So
Mhm.
talk about that before we close.
Sure, Dr. North, thanks again. And Raise Your GPA was written to help the next generation maximize everything God put inside of them.
Hmm.
And as a foundation, the next generation has to understand and appreciate that what they're looking for
Hmm.
in their heart and in life, the significance, the dominion that God proclaimed over Adam and Eve, that we are all still searching for, they usually define as being successful.
Mhm.
Well, how can you achieve maximum significance? How can
Mhm.
you have satisfaction with your life? How can you achieve everything that God has put inside of us if we don't major in the most important part of life, as you shared, and that's love?
Yeah.
We've got to love God with everything that's within us. We've got
Yeah.
to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, strength, and we've got to love our neighbor as ourselves. And of course, for young people, we've got to meet them where they are. We have to help them understand, which is why I chose the acronym, your GPA.
Mhm.
Most young people know their GPA stands for their grade point average. It's the measure of your academic success. But
Mm.
in the book, we also help them understand that they have a God point average, the
Mhm.
things that push them closer to God and success,
Mhm.
so that by loving God,
Mhm.
by maximizing their spiritual, their
Mhm.
natural, and their academic acumen
Mhm.
and their skill set, they will find success in so many areas,
Right.
not only naturally, but spiritually, academically,
Mhm.
career wise. They're going to blow their parents' mind. They're going to blow their generation's mind,
Mhm.
because God will put his hand on them.
Mhm.
As I shared with you, you introduced my wife in the onset. We've been married for 26 plus years. We have two sons, Jonathan and Justin. Both of them scored in the top 0.1% of the ACT
Wow.
college entrance exam. One of
Wow.
our sons got a perfect 36. That
Mm.
didn't happen because they were smarter than any one of the other hundreds of students that
Yeah.
I've tutored. They're not smarter. Life is about preparation,
Mhm.
support, nurturing,
Mhm.
and our goal is not to walk around with every single one of our students having a straight A average. That
Right.
would be nice, but we want to meet them where they are and
Right.
understand that when you give God a effort, leave the rest to Him. If you're
Right.
studying for A, preparing for an A, we have to be comfortable with
Right.
B's or whatever academic outcome happens. But we can set the expectation, hey, let's make sure we're studying adequately,
Right.
preparing at least 3 days before each test,
Right.
taking our academics seriously, taking our skills seriously, the arts seriously, all those neat things. But yes, you can't win without loving God. You
Right.
can't win without loving our neighbor. You
No.
can't win without letting love have its free course in your life. And of course, love comes from God. So you don't even have to
You.
understand that you don't have to make love up. Receive love from God and then use that love to
Right.
make a God-sized impact in your community by loving on God and loving on others.
Oh my goodness, this is like so amazing. This was so awesome. So I want to thank you for being my guest on Real Conversations with Noah. What are you? Do you have any last minute comments, or what would you like to say to the audience before we leave today?
Dr. Nora, I believe that the problems that previous generations and our generation have brought to the earth cannot be solved with the previous generation's ideas. We
Wow.
need every generation collaborating.
Right.
We need our youth. We need our parents and our Gen X's, our millennials. We of course need the alphas, as I mentioned earlier. We need the boomers. We need every generation collaborating.
Hmm.
That collaboration starts with listening.
Wow.
What's important to you? What
Wow.
is our common ground? Because we can't collaborate on everything, but we can collaborate on the big things. Our generation's responsibility is to make sure that we are listening
Hmm.
in lockstep and being the biggest cheerleaders for emerging generations.
Wow.
That's when we will have respect. That's when we'll have collaboration. That's when God will get the maximum glory. And that's when we will see God rise over our communities. There will be no limits to the generations that collaborate through faith. I know that God is with us.
And and ending on that, it's so important. I no matter, you said something that was so profound, that no matter what we do, God loves us anyway. No matter what we do, he loves the sinner. He doesn't love the sin, but he loves the sinner. And so I really, when I'm talking to my grandchildren, the last thing I end with was that I love you.
Mhm.
And what I found, especially with Justin, he's starting to say, and I love you too, Nana. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's just constantly, you don't give up because they don't say it when you want them to say it, or they don't do
Correct.
what you want them to do. But it's actually, you keep moving in that direction. So thank you again. It's just So
Dr.
amazing.
Nora, you opened the door, and I appreciate your example and leadership in exposing leaders to what I pray is great thought leadership. But I would also encourage, as you continue to end your calls with Justin, your other grandchildren, and really for all the next generation, the word love in society today is almost overplayed. So
Right.
I'm not telling you not to use it,
Right.
and I want us to also go beyond it.
Oh,
Let them
absolutely.
know, let them know. And again, I'm sure you do, but
Right.
others may not. Affirm,
Right.
say, hey, you know what? You matter to me. I
Absolutely.
appreciate and I am better because of our conversation and connection.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Absolutely.
excited about what God has for you next. So
Mhm.
begin to speak words that they can receive. We know that mental health is really ramping up as
Yeah.
far as mental health challenges
Right.
in emerging generations.
Right.
They struggle with self worth, they
Right.
struggle with identity, they struggle with thoughts of self harm, suicidal ideation, and this affects every single human at some level.
Right.
So instead of just over spiritualizing it, and I'm
Right.
not saying under
I
spiritualizing it,
understand.
I'm saying
Mhm.
affirm them in ways that are meaningful to them.
Them.
In using words like worth, using words like enough,
Mhm.
using words like I see you, but I
Mhm.
want to see you more.
Right.
And understanding ways of communicating value, because that's really what we're trying to do when we say I love you. We're trying
Absolutely.
to demonstrate and communicate and share value and
Yes.
worth.
Right.
Make sure we're doing it in ways that can be received intimately and deeply by the next generation. Then God will use those seeds of love, what we know as love, and you will
Right.
have a harvest of grace, of salvation, and
Mm.
of significance blossom in the hearts of our young people.
Absolutely. How can they follow you on social media or stay in touch with you?
Well, I would love to connect with your viewers. My handles typically are at JB Jonathan Banks. Right now, primarily, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but yes, at JB Jonathan Banks. And of course, all they need to do is do an internet search on Raise Your GPA Jonathan Banks. We'd be honored to connect with them. Thanks again, Dr. Nora.
Thank you. And once again, I want to thank you for your insight. Oh, your amazing insight on today's topic. Thank you so much. Thank you. And to my Real Conversation with Nora audience, please follow us on social media, on Instagram at BWOTMFG, and on Facebook at Business Women on the Move for God. And also visit our website at bwotmfg.com. And also ask your friends to watch the show each week and share it with others. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Real Conversations with Nora. God bless you and have a wonderful and prosperous